Olivia Wright checked her oxygen levels one more time as she ventured deeper into the alien jungle. The rest of the crew stayed behind to set up the base camp, but she couldn't wait to explore. As the ship's xenobiologist, she lived for these moments, the chance to discover new life forms on unexplored planets. Base, this is right. I'm about 2 miles east of camp now. The plant life here is unlike anything we've seen before, she reported into her wrist communicator. Copy that, right? Remember, you've got 3 hours before sunset. Don't make us come looking for you. Captain Joe Miller's voice crackled through the device. Understood, sir. The jungle of Kepler 438b was a riot of colors. Purple vines wrapped around trees with blue bark. Orange flowers that seemed to follow her movements dotted the landscape. The air was thick and humid even through her suit's environmental. Controls. Olivia stopped to collect samples of a strange moss that glowed faintly green. She carefully placed it in a specimen container and made notes on her tablet. This planet had been identified as potentially habitable, but so far they had found only plant life and small insect-like creatures, nothing sentient, nothing dangerous. That was about to change. The ground trembled slightly. At first, Olivia thought it might be a small earthquake. Then she heard it, a rhythmic thudding, footsteps, heavy footsteps. She looked up from her tablet, just as the vegetation ahead parted. Olivia froze. The creature that emerged was massive. Standing at least 9 feet tall, it had a humanoid shape but was covered in iridescent scales that shifted from green to blue in the dappled sunlight. Its face was reptilian with a strong jaw and bright yellow eyes with vertical pupils that fixed on her immediately. The being wore what appeared to be armor made from some metallic material, and various weapons hung from a belt around its waist. Olivia's training told her to run. Every instinct screamed danger, but she remained still, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her fear. The creature tilted its head, studying her with obvious intelligence. It made a series of clicking sounds followed by a low growl. To her surprise, her universal translator began to process the sounds. After a moment, it produced a rough translation. Human female, alone, vulnerable. Olivia swallowed hard. The fact that the translator worked at all meant this species used language complex enough to be interpreted. This was a sentient being. Come in peace, she said slowly, raising her empty hands to show she carried no weapons. My name is Olivia Wright. I'm a scientist from Earth. The translator converted her words into a series of clicks and rumbles. The creature's eyes widened slightly. You speak with machine help, it responded after the translator finished. Interesting. Yes, Olivia confirmed, her heart still pounding but her scientific mind now fully engaged. Are you native to this world? The creature made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret, but it seemed like it might be laughter. No, I hunt here. This is game preserve for Drakathi warriors. Olivia processed this information quickly. You're a hunter, and I'm in your hunting grounds? Yes, you are prey that speaks. New experience for Kresh. Kresh, is that your name? The creature thumped its armored chest with a clawed hand. I am Kresh, 4th hunter of the Sundered Claw clan. I apologize for trespassing in your hunting grounds, Kresh. We didn't know anyone claimed this planet. Kresh moved closer, and Olivia forced herself not to back away. The creature towered over her. She could see now that what she had taken for decorative markings on its armor were actually writing of some kind. Small prey usually runs, Kresh observed. You stand ground? Have courage. Running from a predator often triggers the chase response, Olivia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Besides, I'm curious. I've never met a species like yours before. Kresh made that untranslatable sound again. Curious prey. Dangerous. Trait, perhaps, but it's how humans learn and grow. The Drakathi warrior circled her slowly, examining her from all angles. Olivia remained still, allowing the inspection while keeping her eyes on Kresh. Your kind has space travel, not primitive. Yet physically weak. No natural weapons, Kresh noted, gesturing to Olivia's hands. How do humans survive? We adapt, Olivia explained. We create tools, we work together. Our strength is in our minds and our communities. Kresh stopped circling and faced her directly. Many species say this, few prove true. Olivia decided to take a risk. If you're interested in learning more about humans, you could come back to our camp with me. Meet others of my kind, her risk communicator buzzed. Right, check in? You've been silent for 15 minutes, came Captain Miller's concerned voice, keeping her eyes on Kresh. She responded, Captain, I've made contact with a sentient species called the Drakathi. I'm talking with one named Kresh right now. There was a pause before Miller's voice returned, now tense. Are you in danger? Do you need extraction? Before Olivia could answer, Kresh leaned down toward her communicator. Human Captain, your hunter is safe. Kresh finds her worthy of talk, not hunt. There was another, longer pause. Right, is it safe to bring this individual back to camp? Miller finally asked. Olivia looked up at Kresh. Would you agree to come peacefully? No weapons? Kresh considered this, then nodded. Kresh will observe human camp. Learn more of curious prey that does not run. We're coming back, Captain, Olivia confirmed. Please inform the team we have our first official first contact situation. As she began to lead the way back toward camp, Olivia realized her hands were shaking from the adrenaline. She had just faced down a creature that could have killed her instantly, and somehow turned the encounter into a diplomatic opportunity. Kresh walked beside her, matching his long strides to her smaller ones. Human Olivia Wright shows respect, unusual for prey species. Maybe I don't see myself as prey, she suggested. Kresh made that sound again, which Olivia was starting to think might be appreciation or amusement. That is why you interest Kresh. Small creature with large thoughts. As they approached the edge of the camp, Olivia could see the security team lined up with weapons ready. Captain Miller stood at the front, his face a mask of concern and curiosity. Welcome to humanity's first outpost on Kepler 438b, Olivia said formally to Kresh. The Drakathi warrior looked at the nervous humans, then back at Olivia, who walked confidently beside him despite the size difference. Drakathi have conquered 3 star systems, Kresh said quietly. All fear us as apex predators of the galaxy. And yet, here you are, walking peacefully into our camp because you're curious, Olivia pointed out. Kresh nodded slowly. Perhaps Drakathi have something to learn from humans after all. As they stepped into the camp together, neither of them realized they had just changed the course of galactic history forever. 6 months had passed since Olivia's first meeting with Kresh in the jungle. The small research outpost on Kepler 438b had grown into a bustling diplomatic base. Ships from Earth arrived weekly, bringing officials eager to establish relations. With the powerful Kathy. Captain Frank Morgan stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Endeavour, watching the stars through the large viewing window. His ship had been assigned to transport the human negotiation team, and he still couldn't believe his luck. After 20 years in space, he was finally part of something truly historic. Captain, the Drakathi warship is approaching, his communications. Officer Lisa Young announced. Frank nodded. Alert our diplomatic team. The Drakathi ship came into view, and Frank couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and fear. It was massive, at least 5 times the size of the Endeavour. Its dark metal hull was shaped like a predatory animal, with sharp angles that reminded him of claws and teeth. Olivia Wright entered the bridge, now wearing the formal uniform of a xenological relations specialist. Her experiences with Kresh had made her the natural choice to lead the human Drakathi communication efforts. Impressive, isn't it? She asked, coming to stand beside Frank. Terrifying is more like it, Frank replied honestly. How are you not scared of them, Olivia? You spent more time with the Drakathi than anyone. Olivia smiled. They respect strength, Captain, but not the kind we initially thought. What do you mean? The Drakathi value mental strength above all else. Yes, they're physically powerful, but in their society, the greatest honor goes to those with tactical minds and emotional control. Physical prowess is just the foundation. Frank watched as the massive ship moved into position alongside the Endeavour. And they think humans have this mental strength. They're starting to, Olivia said. Kresh has been advocating for us. SAYS humans show remarkable adaptability and problem-solving skills. That's rare among species they've encountered. A light flashed on the communications panel. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Drakathi vessel, Lisa reported. Put it through, Frank ordered. The main screen lit up, showing Kresh in elaborate armor decorated with symbols of rank that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Olivia had explained that he had been promoted to ambassador after his reports about humans. Greetings, Endeavor. Kresh's deep voice rumbled through the translator. The High Council awaits the human delegation. We're ready to transport when you are, Ambassador Kresh, Frank responded. Kresh's yellow eyes found Olivia. Scientist Wright, you will attend? Olivia stepped forward. Yes, Ambassador. I'll be leading our cultural exchange team. Good, the Council is curious about human ways. The screen went dark and Frank turned to Olivia. He seems different, more formal. He's under scrutiny from his superiors, Olivia explained. The Drakathi aren't used to forming alliances, they usually conquer. And why aren't they conquering? US? Frank asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Olivia's expression grew serious. Because Kresh convinced them we might be more valuable as allies, but we need to prove him right. Later that day, Olivia sat with the human delegation in the massive meeting hall aboard the Drakathi ship. The room was warm, uncomfortably. So for the humans, but necessary for the reptilian Drakathi. 7 members of the Drakathi High Council sat on elevated seats. Looking down at the humans with varying degrees of interest and skepticism, Kresh stood to one side, his position indicating his role as intermediary rather than decision-maker. We have reviewed your proposal for knowledge exchange, said the central figure. An older Drakathi with faded scales and an impressive collection of scars. The translator identified him as Supreme Hunter Valkorin. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez, the official representative of Earth's united government, nodded respectfully. We acknowledge the difference in technological development, Supreme Hunter. However, we believe our scientific approach and problem-solving methods may offer unique perspectives. Valkorin made a dismissive gesture. Words, all species claim uniqueness. Olivia caught Kresh's eye, and he gave her a slight nod of encouragement. She stood up, drawing the attention of the council. Supreme Hunter, if I may, she began. When Kresh and I first met, he could have killed me instantly. I was alone and defenseless. Instead, he chose to talk, to learn that curiosity, that willingness to find value in something different, is a strength our species share. The council members exchanged looks. Another counselor, identified as war strategist Mevinar, leaned forward. You stood your ground against a Drakathi hunter? Without weapons? Yes, Olivia confirmed. I recognized running would be pointless. So I chose to communicate instead? A low rumble of conversation spread among the council. Mevinar seemed particularly interested. Perhaps a demonstration of human problem-solving would be more convincing than words, she suggested. Valkorin considered this, then nodded. Yes, we have received disturbing reports from the outer systems. The galactic hegemony has been expanding its influence. They claim to bring peace, but demand compliance. Helen Rodriguez frowned. The galactic hegemony? We're not familiar with this group. A coalition of 7 advanced species, Kresh explained. They believe in strict order and control across star systems. They have approached us with demands. That we curtail our hunting grounds, Valkorin said. They fear our strength. And now, they will fear our association with an unknown species. Olivia realized the implications immediately. You're saying our alliance might draw their attention. It already has, Mevinar confirmed. Our scouts report a hegemony diplomatic vessel heading toward this system. They will arrive in 3 days. The human delegation exchanged concerned glances. They had barely established contact with one alien civilization, and now they were about to face judgment from an entire coalition of advanced species. What do they want? Helen asked. Control, Valkorin stated simply. They offer technology and protection in exchange for obedience to their laws and customs. And if we refuse? Kresh stepped forward. They have ways of applying pressure, trade restrictions, technology embargoes, sometimes more direct methods. You mean war, Frank said from his position near the back of the human group. The hegemony prefers to call it peacekeeping, Mevinar said with a sound that the translator couldn't interpret but seemed sarcastic. Valkoren's gaze swept over the humans. This will be your test. The hegemony will try to turn us against each other. They will offer you benefits to abandon this alliance. They will offer us the same. How humans respond will show us your true worth. As the meeting concluded, Olivia found herself walking alongside Kresh through the massive corridors of the Drakathi ship. Your council doesn't seem convinced about humans, she said quietly. They need proof, Kresh replied. Words mean little to Drakathi. And you? Do you still believe humans are worth allying with? Kresh stopped and turned to her. You changed my understanding of strength, Olivia Wright. Few beings can claim to have changed a Drakathi's mind. Before she could respond, an alarm blared throughout the ship. Kresh's posture stiffened as he listened to an announcement in his native language. What is it? Olivia asked. The hegemony ship, Kresh said grimly. They've arrived early. And they're demanding immediate talks? The test was about to begin sooner than anyone had expected. The hegemony ship looked nothing like the vessels of Earth or the Drakathi. It was smooth and white, shaped like a perfect oval with no visible weapons or engines. It simply appeared in orbit around Kepler 438b, ignoring all standard approach protocols. They're hailing us, Lisa Young reported from her communications station aboard the Endeavour. Captain Frank Morgan nodded grimly. Put it through to the main conference room. Make sure our diplomatic team is there. In the large conference room, Olivia stood with Ambassador Helen Rodriguez, Kresh, and Supreme Hunter Valkoren. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. With a knife, the large screen on the wall flickered to life, revealing a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and large, completely black eyes. It had no visible nose, just small breathing slits, and its mouth was a thin line across its face. The being wore a simple white robe with a silver symbol on the chest. I am Supreme Overseer Zellner of the Galactic Hegemony, the alien said, its voice oddly musical despite the serious expression. I come with concerns about this unexpected alliance. Helen stepped forward. I am Ambassador Helen Rodriguez of Earth. We welcome diplomatic dialogue with the hegemony. Zellner's black eyes shifted to Valkoren. The Drakathi are known conquerors, not allies. This situation requires investigation. Valkoren growled something that the translator couldn't quite catch before responding formally. The affairs of the Drakathi Imperium are not the concern of the hegemony. They become our concern when they affect galactic stability, Zellner countered smoothly. We request an immediate summit aboard our vessel. Helen glanced at Valkoren, who gave a slight nod. We accept, she said. Zellner's eyes finally landed on Olivia. All relevant parties should attend, including the human female who initiated contact with the Drakathi hunter. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. How did they know about her specifically? I'll be there, she said firmly. The screen went dark and Helen turned to the others. What exactly are we walking into? Kresh's expression was grim. The hegemony maintains what they call peace through control. They will not welcome an unpredictable factor like human Drakathi cooperation. 2 hours later, a small delegation boarded a shuttle to the hegemony ship. Captain Frank insisted on joining them, bringing along his security chief Ben Wilson. Together with Olivia, Helen, Kresh, and Valkoren, they made up the joint delegation. The inside of the hegemony vessel was as pristine as its exterior. Everything was white, with soft blue lighting that seemed to come from nowhere in particular. They were led through curved corridors by silent, blue-skinned beings similar to Zellner. They're called Arcadians, Kresh whispered to Olivia. The founding species of the hegemony. They entered a circular room with a round table in the center. Zellner sat at one side, flanked by representatives of other species, one that looked like a tall insect, another that appeared to be made of living crystal, and others Olivia couldn't begin to classify. Welcome, Zellner said. Please, be seated. As they took their places, Olivia noticed there were exactly the right number of chairs for their party. The hegemony had known precisely who would come. Let us speak plainly, Zellner began once they were all seated. The Dracothi are predators by nature. Humans are an undeveloped species barely a century into space travel. This alliance is ... concerning. Why should it concern the hegemony? Helen asked directly. Unpredictability creates instability, said the crystalline being. The hegemony ensures peace through careful management of interspecies relations. You mean control? Valkoran rumbled. XELNA are spread as long, six-fingered hands. We prefer to call it guidance. The Dracothi have rejected our guidance for centuries, yet now they form bonds with a primitive species. We must understand why. Perhaps we saw value where you saw only primitives, Kresh suggested, the insectoid being clicked its mandibles together. The Dracothi value strength above all. These humans are physically weak. They have no natural weapons. Their technology is rudimentary. Strength takes many forms, Olivia said, speaking up for the first time. All eyes turned to her. Indeed, Zellner said slowly. And that brings us to you, Olivia, right? The first contact specialist who somehow charmed a Dracothi. Hunter instead of becoming his prey. Olivia met his black eyes steadily. I showed respect and courage. Yes, quite remarkable, Zellner said, though his tone suggested he found it more suspicious than impressive. Yet one successful first contact hardly justifies an alliance that could disrupt centuries of carefully maintained galactic order. Frank leaned forward. With all due respect, Overseer, humanity doesn't recognize the authority of your hegemony. We are free to form alliances as we see fit. A tense silence followed his words. The hegemony representatives exchanged glances. Freedom without guidance leads to chaos, Zellner finally said. The hegemony offers Earth a place within our collective. Technology, protection, knowledge. In exchange, you would simply need to sever this premature alliance with the Dracothi. Helen's expression remained diplomatic, but her voice was firm. And if we decline? Then we would be forced to consider Earth a potentially destabilizing element in this sector, the crystalline being said. Preventative measures might be necessary. You threaten war? Valkoran growled. We prefer to call it peacekeeping. Zellner replied smoothly. The summit continued for another hour, with veiled threats and diplomatic doublespeak from both sides. Finally, Zellner called for a recess. We will reconvene tomorrow. Consider our offer carefully, he told the human delegation before turning to the Dracothi. And we have a private matter to discuss with you. As they were escorted back to their shuttle, Olivia felt uneasy. They're going to try to split us apart, she whispered to Helen. I know, the ambassador replied. But they underestimate how stubborn humans can be. Later that night, aboard the Dracothi flagship, Kresh received a private transmission in his quarters. The holographic form of Zellner appeared before him. This communication is secure and will not be recorded in our official logs, Zellner said without preamble. I speak to you now not as a diplomat, but as one who understands necessary action. Kresh remained silent, waiting. The Dracothi have always been pragmatic, Zellner continued. You understand that certain individuals can disrupt the natural order. In this case, the human female who initiated contact. Olivia Wright, Kresh, said his voice neutral. Yes, she is the linchpin of this problematic alliance. Remove her, and natural order will reassert itself. The hegemony would consider such an action as sufficient demonstration of the Dracothi-esque commitment to galactic stability. Kresh's yellow eyes narrowed. You want me to kill her? I want you to eliminate an obstacle to peace, Zellner corrected. One life against potential conflict that could cost millions. It is the logical choice, and if I refuse? Zellner's expression hardened. Then the hegemony will be forced to consider the Dracothi Imperium as willfully destabilizing galactic harmony. The consequences would be ... After Zellner's image faded, Kresh stood motionless for several minutes. Then he pressed a control on his armor, activating the ship's internal communication system. Bring the human delegation to the command center, he ordered, immediately. 20 minutes later, Olivia entered the Drakathi command center with Frank. Helen and Ben, they found Kresh standing at the center of the room, surrounded by the Drakathi command staff and council members. What's happening? Olivia asked, sensing the tension in the room. Without answering, Kresh activated a communication channel. Zellner's face appeared on the main screen, looking surprised to see the humans present. You have made your decision quickly, Zellner said, recovering his composure. And unwisely, it seems. I have, Kresh replied. He turned to face Olivia directly. To everyone's shock, Kresh unsheathed his ceremonial blade, a curved weapon made of a metal no human had ever seen before. The room went silent. Olivia stood her ground, though her heart raced. She met Kresh's yellow eyes without flinching. Then, in a move that would change everything, Kresh knelt before her, laying his blade at her feet. The Drakathi Imperium chooses alliance with humanity, he declared loudly. Over the hollow piece of the hegemony, Zellner's face contorted with rage. You have made a grave error, Hunter Kresh. The hegemony will not forget this insult. Nor will we forget your attempt to manipulate us, Valkorin growled, stepping forward. The summit is over. Leave our system immediately. As Zellner's image disappeared, Olivia looked down at Kresh, still kneeling before her. You could have killed me, she said quietly. Why didn't you? Kresh rose to his full height, towering over her once more. The Drakathi bow to strength, Olivia, right? Not to threats? You showed true strength when we first met? The hegemony shows only fear disguised as authority. Frank moved to stand beside Olivia. What happens now? Valkorin's expression was grim. Now we prepare for war. The hegemony struck without warning 3 days later. 3 small Earth outposts in the Tau Ceti system were destroyed before anyone could send distress signals. Over 500 human colonists died in the initial attack. Admiral Patricia Diaz received the news aboard her flagship, the Defender. As the highest-ranking military officer in the sector, the responsibility for humanity's response fell on her shoulders. They targeted civilians, she said grimly, looking at the damage reports on her screen. No military value at all. Just a message. Her second-in-command, Commander Jack Turner, nodded. They want to show us the cost of defying them. Admiral. Diaz stood up, her decision made. Contact the Drakathi Military Command. We need to coordinate our response. Within hours, the bridge of the Defender hosted an unusual gathering. Admiral Diaz sat at the head of the table with Olivia right beside her. The Admiral had specifically requested Olivia's presence, recognizing that her unique relationship with the Drakathi made her invaluable. Across from them sat Kresh and Drakathi War Commander Vorex, a battle-scarred veteran whose scales had dulled with age but whose yellow eyes remained sharp and alert. The hegemony has 7 major fleets, Vorex explained, pointing to a holographic map of the sector. They have already moved 2 toward our territories. Our intelligence suggests they plan to establish a blockade, Admiral Diaz added. Cut off Earth from the Drakathi, isolate us, then deal with each separately. Olivia studied the map carefully. They're targeting communication relays first, she noted. They want to prevent us from coordinating. Kresh nodded appreciatively. You see it too. The hegemony fears our combined strength. We need to analyze their attack patterns, Olivia suggested. There might be weaknesses in their strategy we can exploit. Commander Turner looked skeptical. You're a xenobiologist, not a military strategist, Dr. Wright? But she understands how different species think, Admiral Diaz countered. And right now, understanding our enemy is as important as knowing their weapons capabilities. The meeting continued for hours as they developed battle plans. Olivia worked closely with Kresh, analyzing hegemony communication patterns to predict their next moves. Their different perspectives complemented each other. Kresh's tactical experience combined with Olivia's insight into behavior patterns. They're targeting civilian habitats specifically, Olivia noted, studying the holographic display of recent attacks. They're trying to demoralize us. Kresh nodded. The hegemony believes humans will break under such pressure. They do not understand that threat often strengthens your kind rather than weakens it. They expect us to abandon each other to save ourselves, Admiral Daz said. They don't understand alliance. Commander Turner pointed to a section of the map. We need to protect the civilian evacuation routes here and here. The hegemony will target them next. The Dracothi battle cruisers can provide cover, Vorex suggested. Our shields are stronger than your ships. As the plans took shape, Olivia realized something remarkable was happening. Two species that could hardly be more different were finding ways to work together, combining strengths and compensating for weaknesses on the front lines. Major George Lewis led a joint human Dracothi special operations team on a mission to disable a hegemony weapons platform. The human soldiers were significantly smaller and physically weaker than their Dracothi counterparts, but they had advantages of their own. We can fit through these maintenance tunnels, Major Lewis explained to his team. The hegemony designed them for their repair drones, not expecting humanoid infiltration. Dracothi warrior Thrak, nearly twice Lewis's size, rumbled in agreement. We will create diversion at main entrance. Humans slip through tunnels, disable shield generators. The joint team moved through the space station with practiced coordination. When a patrol of hegemony guards appeared, the humans took cover while the Dracothi engaged directly. The hegemony soldiers, used to fighting conventional battles, were unprepared for the mixed tactics. The mission was a success. The weapons platform was disabled with minimal casualties. It was the first of many joint operations that began to turn the tide of the war. Back on the command ship, Olivia analyzed the results of these early victories. The hegemony expected us to fight like the Dracothi, direct, powerful, predictable, she explained to Admiral Diaz. They weren't prepared for human adaptability combined with Dracothi strength. It's working better than I hoped, Admiral Diaz admitted. But the hegemony still has vastly superior numbers and technology. Numbers and technology aren't everything, Kresh said as he entered the room. The hegemony has grown complacent. They expect species to behave according to their established patterns. Admiral Diaz smiled tiredly. And we're breaking the pattern. Kresh placed a data device on the table. Our scouts have discovered something interesting. The hegemony is calling for reinforcements. They are concerned. The war continued for months. The hegemony had expected a quick victory, but the combined human Dracothi forces proved surprisingly resilient. Humans contributed creativity and adaptability, while the Dracothi provided strength and advanced technology. After a particularly successful mission, Dracothi Commander Vorex reported to the High Council with something close to amazement in his voice. The humans learned to compensate for their physical limitations in ways we never considered, he said. One human soldier used environmental factors to overcome 3 hegemony guards twice his size. Supreme Hunter Valkoran considered this. You sound impressed, Commander. I am, Vorex admitted. They are not like any species we have encountered before. On the bridge of a Dracothi battlecruiser, Kresh and Olivia monitored the progress of another joint mission. Despite months of war, Olivia had refused to return to Earth, choosing instead to remain at the forefront of the conflict, where her understanding of both species proved invaluable. The hegemony is pulling back from the Proxima Centauri system, Olivia noted, watching the tactical display. That's the third retreat this week? They did not expect such resistance, Kresh said, especially from humans. They thought you would be the weak link, Olivia smiled grimly. They don't understand what we're fighting for. And what is that? Kresh asked curiously. Freedom. The right to make our own choices, form our own alliances, to be partners rather than subjects. Kresh studied her for a moment. The Dracothi fight for dominance, for strength. Yet, in this alliance we have found something perhaps more valuable. What's that? Respect, Kresh said simply. Humans fight harder when protecting others than when protecting themselves. We were wrong about your species. You are not simply cunning prey that learn to fight back. You are guardians by nature. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. Admiral Diaz's face appeared on the screen. We've intercepted hegemony communications, she said without preamble. They're planning something big? A direct assault on Earth itself. Olivia felt her blood run cold. When? 2 days. They're gathering their forces now. Kresh's expression hardened. They hope to break the alliance by threatening your homeworld. We need to stop them before they reach Earth, Olivia said. All our forces, one decisive battle, Admiral Diaz nodded. My thoughts exactly. We're calling it Operation Turning Point. Every ship we have, human and Drakathi, will meet them at the edge of our solar system. As the communication ended, Kresh turned to Olivia. This will be the largest battle yet. The hegemony will commit everything they have. So will we, Olivia replied with determination. It's time to show them what humans and Drakathi can do together. The next day, as the combined fleet assembled, Olivia stood on the bridge of the flagship alongside Admiral Diaz, Kresh, and Valkorin. Before them, the largest gathering of ships in human history prepared to defend Earth. The hegemony thinks they can break us by threatening what we love most, Admiral Diaz addressed the fleet. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The battle for Earth lasted 3 days. It was the largest space conflict in human history. The hegemony brought 5 major fleets, expecting to overwhelm the combined human-Drakathi forces. They didn't expect the level of coordination they faced. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable, darted between the massive hegemony cruisers, creating openings for the powerful Drakathi warships to deliver devastating blows. The hegemony commanders, used to fighting predictable enemies, struggled to adapt to the constantly changing tactics. On the bridge of the Defender, Admiral Patricia Diaz watched the battle unfold with grim determination. Beside her stood Olivia, Wright, and Kresh, who had become her most trusted advisors. The hegemony flagship is changing position, Olivia noted, pointing to the tactical display. They're trying to regroup their forces. Kresh studied the movement carefully. They are uncertain. Their formation is defensive now, not offensive, Admiral Diaz nodded. They expected an easy victory. Now they're wondering if they've made a mistake. She turned to her communications officer. Signal all ships. Execute pattern Delta. The human Drakathi fleet shifted in response, forming a new attack configuration that further confused the hegemony commanders. It was the 7th formation. Change in as many hours, a strategy developed by combining Drakathi battle, knowledge with human adaptability. By the 3rd day, the tide had clearly turned. The hegemony lost 3 of their command ships and dozens of support vessels. Their remaining forces began a fighting retreat. They're pulling back, Commander Jack Turner reported with barely contained excitement. All across the line. A cheer went up from the human crew members. The Drakathi warriors remained stoic, but their postures showed pride in the victory. Admiral Diaz raised her hand for silence. They're retreating, but this isn't over. The hegemony won't give up so easily. No, Kresh agreed. But they have learned that humans and Drakathi together are not prey to be hunted. This victory will echo across the stars. 1 week later, as the Allied fleet repaired damage and counted losses, a message arrived from the hegemony. Supreme Overseer Zellner requested a meeting to discuss terms. The meeting took place on a neutral space station at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Diaz led the human delegation, while Supreme Hunter Valkorin represented the Drakathi. Olivia and Kresh attended as advisors. When Zellner entered the meeting chamber, he looked diminished somehow. His pale blue skin had a grayish tinge, and his posture lacked its former confidence. The hegemony recognizes the unexpected strength of your alliance, Zellner began, his musical voice strained. We propose a ceasefire and withdrawal of forces from your territories. Admiral Diaz leaned forward. And in exchange? Non-interference. You keep to your systems, we keep to ours. Zellner's black eyes darted between the humans and Drakathi. A mutually beneficial arrangement? Valkorin made a dismissive sound. You attacked without provocation, targeted civilians. And now you speak of mutual benefit? War benefits no one, Zellner countered. The hegemony seeks stability. No, Olivia spoke up. The hegemony seeks control. There's a difference. Zellner's gaze fixed on her with barely concealed hatred. The human female still lives, the cause of this conflict. Kresh stepped forward, his massive form towering over the Arcadian. Not the cause, the catalyst. Your fear of what you do not understand, that was the cause. Admiral Diaz placed her hands flat on the table. Here are our terms. The hegemony will withdraw from all human and Drakathi territories. You will pay reparations for the civilians killed in your attacks. And you will recognize the sovereignty of any species that wishes to leave the hegemony's control. Zellner's eyes widened. Impossible. The hegemony has maintained order for centuries. You cannot simply... We can, Valkorin interrupted. And, we will. Our forces are already in position to continue this war if necessary. And we've been contacted by 15 other species under hegemony control, Olivia added. They've been watching this conflict closely. They're ready for change. The negotiations continued for days, with Zellner fighting against each term. But the hegemony's position was weak, and everyone in the room knew it. In the end, a new treaty was signed. The galactic hegemony would remain, but with greatly reduced power. Any species could choose to leave its control without fear of reprisal. A new organization would be formed, the Galactic Cooperative, where all member species would have equal voice. 1 year after Kresh had chosen to bow rather than kill, Olivia stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned joint command vessel Unity. Beside her stood Kresh, watching as representatives from 15 previously subjugated species arrived for the formal founding of the Galactic Cooperative. Did you know it would come to this? She asked, recalling the moment Kresh had knelt before her instead of carrying out the hegemony's order. No, Kresh admitted. I knew only that killing you would have been dishonorable. The Drakathi have conquered many, but we recognize strength when we encounter it. Your species appeared fragile, yet you showed the courage of a true warrior. Admiral Diaz joined them, accompanied by Ambassador Helen Rodriguez, who had been instrumental in bringing the other liberated species into the alliance. The hegemony's representatives have arrived, Diaz informed them. They're ready to sign the final agreements. As they made their way to the diplomatic chamber, Olivia reflected on how a single moment of mutual respect had changed everything. The Drakathi, feared throughout the galaxy as merciless conquerors, had chosen to ally with humans rather than subjugate them, not out of fear, but out of recognition of complementary strengths. When Supreme Overseer Zellner entered the chamber, flanked by guards, his gaze immediately found Olivia. The human female still lives, he observed bitterly. The cause of our downfall. Kresh stepped forward, imposing in his ceremonial armor. No, the cause of your downfall was believing that difference must be met with destruction rather than understanding. The humans taught us there is strength in diversity. The signing ceremony was brief but meaningful. Representatives of 23 species, including humans and Drakathi, placed their marks on the document that would reshape galactic politics forever. As they left the chamber, Olivia walked alongside Kresh. What happens now? She asked. The Drakathi were conquerors. Can they really adapt to being partners? Kresh looked down at her, his yellow eyes thoughtful. We have learned that there is more than one path to strength. The old way was to stand alone at the top. Perhaps the new way is to stand together. On the bridge of the Unity, Captain Frank Morgan watched as the ships of the new alliance prepared to depart for their homeworlds. Each would carry news of the cooperative and the story of how it began, with a human who showed no fear and a predator who chose to bow rather than kill. Strange, isn't it? Frank said to Admiral Diaz as she joined him. A year ago we were alone in the galaxy as far as we knew. Now we're at the center of a galactic alliance, Diaz smiled. Not so strange. Humans have always been good at making friends in unlikely places. As the Unity prepared to set course for Earth, Olivia stood at the main viewport. The stars stretched out before her, no longer just distant lights but homes to allies and friends. The universe had become both larger and smaller at once. Kresh stood beside her, his massive form a reminder of how different they were, And yet how similar they had proven to be when it mattered most. The hegemony thought we would destroy each other, Olivia said quietly. They never imagined we would make each other stronger. Kresh made the sound that Olivia now recognized as Drakathi laughter. That is why they failed. They saw only the differences, never the possibilities. As the Unity jumped to faster-than-light travel, the story of the human and the apex predator spread throughout the stars, becoming legend among countless worlds who had never dared to hope for freedom. It was a reminder that true strength came not from domination, but from the courage to recognize value in the different, to stand your ground when threatened, and to bow not out of weakness, but out of respect.